Welcome back to Classy and Sassy. I'm your host, Erica Regina. Now, this week, I'm going to do something similar than I guess that I've done before. Just jumping around different things that are making me think instead of just one hard set topic. Okay? No grand theme that connects everything, just several completely unrelated things that make me stop, question something, may have made me laugh or get annoyed, or occasionally wonder, what in the world is this world coming to? Where are we going with some of the things we come up with? Okay? We'll be talking reality TV because I finally decided to see what all the fuss was about with the Traitors. People have told me to watch this, I don't know how many times. And I finally decided I wanted to see what the big hubbub was about. You know, what is the big deal with this stupid show? I don't get it. And somehow ended up down a rabbit hole and watched every available season for the U.S. Because apparently I now know there are there's I think a UK version, maybe a Canada version. I don't know, there's a list. I am not going down all those rabbit holes. But I did do the US version. I also want to talk about something I've been reminded of recently when it comes to business. Sometimes an opportunity can look really right on paper. Everything, all the boxes are checked. But the culture tells you everything you need to know. Then we're going to go somewhere that should be interesting because the internet cannot seem to discuss it calmly. And that is trad wives versus independent women. After that, we're going to be talking about decluttering because apparently owning a house means spending half your time wondering where all your crap is and where all this other crap came from and wondering if you need a bigger house because there's too much junk here, but I digress. And of course, as usual, we will talk books, including what I'm currently reading and something new I'm going to start to do to share as I work on my own books. So, as usual, grab your coffee, your tea, your wine. I do not judge, and let's talk. Now, the Traitors. I finally watched it, and by watched, I do mean I decided to try an episode that somehow ended up watching every available season. Do not judge me. Now, I will say it's easier to fall into finishing their seasons than, say, when I went down the Love Island rabbit hole. Because where Love Island has 30 and 40 episodes on the U.S. versions per season, the Traitors only has 10 or 11 episodes per season. So, although I fell down a rabbit hole, that's usually what happens to me when I check something out, it's not nearly as bad as Love Island. Now, I don't typically casually try a TV show. Apparently, I enter relationships with them. So, if you haven't seen The Traitors, the easiest way I can describe it is like a very elaborate murder mystery dinner where everyone is suspicious, nobody trusts anybody, and occasionally the logic being used to identify someone makes absolutely no sense. You're talking a group of contestants who all enter this game being labeled as faithfuls. Then Alan, who is the host, chooses secretly a few traitors. The rest of the game, the faithfuls are trying to figure out who the traitors are and banish them from the game before the traitors can eliminate them through murder every night. Simple enough. Except these people will use absolutely anything as evidence that someone is a traitor. Someone's too quiet, you're a traitor. Someone's talking too much, or you're definitely a traitor. You didn't look at me in the eye at breakfast. Ma'am, maybe she was just eating her boiled eggs. The theories can get so ridiculous that you almost want to yell at the television because the actual traitor is practically twirling an imaginary mustache in the corner while everybody's accusing some real poor little people because they're was suspicious. And then they get to these banishments where you know you're wrong. You know they're wrong when they've voted for this person. And then it gets almost painful because the person is trying to defend themselves. Nobody believes a word they're saying. And people at home are like, would you just leave her alone? And then they're banished. They stand up there and they have to reveal before they leave if they were a faithful or a traitor. And they were faithful. And suddenly everybody around the table looked shocked, except those of us at home, because, we knew 30 minutes ago. What makes the show more interesting is the casting. The very first season of the U.S. version mixed regular, everyday people with reality television personalities, which felt a little strange to me. And the later seasons, they did just reality stars from different franchises. And of course, me, I had to be nosy and try to figure out what made them change it. So I did a little research. Apparently, which the reasoning actually made sense, after that first season, they switched to all reality personalities because, for one thing, they came and they already understood this world of reality TV. They knew how alliances work. They were already comfortable around cameras. And most importantly, they also brought audiences from the shows they were already on and the followings they already had. So it definitely creates a different game. You could have someone from Survivor sitting next to a housewife who is sitting next to somebody from Big Brother. And while you may not watch, say, Survivor, or you may not be one of the housewife franchise people, you usually know at least some of the people. Everyone brings a completely different skill set, and now you're hooked. Apparently, what I needed in my life was a castle full of reality stars all accusing each other of murder. Who knew? But watching all these different personalities interact also reminds you how much your environment matters. And strangely enough, that's something I've been dealing with in the real world too. I've had a recent, I don't know if I should say recent because it's been going on, but it finally, I guess, hit its crescendo recently. That reminded me how much we can underestimate the culture when we're making big career decisions. Before I was licensed, there was a certain brokerage I wanted to learn more about. I wasn't saying I was definitely going to go there. I simply wanted to have a conversation and see whether the environment might be a good fit for me. I have now made 3 attempts to connect with them. One of them was before I was licensed, one was really quickly after, and the last one was recently. Between the lack of follow-up on the first 2, because I never heard back, and the conversation I eventually did have, I walked away feeling like there wasn't much interest on their part in getting to know me or trying to convince me their office was a good fit. And let me just sidestep here that if you're not in this world, normally when you're meeting with brokerages, you're interviewing them way more than they are interviewing you. So they usually are almost like a more professional version of a used car sales. And what I mean by that is they're normally trying to sell you on why they would be a really good fit for you. Because if you're there, they're making money off of you. And these 3 incidents was frustrating at first, extremely so. But then I realized something. I did get information. While you may not have wanted to give me information, you gave me information. It just wasn't the information I originally called you to get. How someone interacts with you before you even join can tell you quite a bit about working with them might feel like afterward. If communication is difficult now, why am I assuming it's magically going to become easy or wonderful later? If I don't feel particularly welcomed when I'm considering joining, that's worth paying attention to. That doesn't automatically make the company bad. Maybe it is a fantastic environment for somebody else. It simply may not be the right environment for me. I think we forget that sometimes we look at compensation, opportunity, company name, or perhaps the potential for advancement. All of those things matter. But so does how you feel when you walk into the room. Do the people in those organizations share information? Do they seem to really want you to succeed? Are you able to ask questions without feeling like you're bothering someone? Does the leadership style work with your personality? Are these people you actually want to spend a significant portion of your life around? Because a great opportunity in the wrong environment can become miserable pretty quickly. Sometimes people show you what working with them would be like when you're still deciding whether you want to work with them. So pay attention. And speaking of people being very convinced that there's one correct way to do things, can we talk about women for a minute? Because apparently we've decided we need teams. I know what I said sounds crazy. Trad wife versus independent woman. Why do these two phases seem to make people so angry lately? Trad wife, independent woman, say either one online, and somebody somewhere is already typing an essay in the comments. There are all these trad wife conversations because somewhere somebody decided that trad wife equals the image of a woman at home baking bread from scratch every morning, wearing some beautiful dress while her husband is out earning the money and she's just twirling her hair. Meanwhile, someone else has decided the independent woman gets turned into someone saying, I don't need a man for nothing. First of all, whoever said that? Yes, don't get me wrong. There are some women who say they don't need a man. That doesn't mean they're independent women, just like all independent women are not running around saying, I don't need a man. Sometimes she'll earn the money, change the tire, build the house, repair the plumbing, and apparently perform her own root canal if necessary, according to the internet. Can we calm down? Because most women don't live at either extreme of these two definitions. More importantly, though, is why are we so bothered by another woman's choice? Because it's not just women upset by these definitions, it's men upset by them. If a woman wants to stay home, take care of her family and her house, can financially support that choice, why would another woman care? Why would it be her business? On the other side, if a woman absolutely loves her career, enjoys making her own money, has absolutely no desire to be a stay-at-home wife, why should that bother anybody? Neither choice makes either woman more or less of a woman. Being independent doesn't mean you don't want to partner with someone. You can make your own money and still enjoy having a man who takes care of things. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Likewise, being a stay-at-home wife does not automatically mean you have no voice, no independence, and no idea what's happening with the family finances. What concerned me most is not women making different choices. It's when personal preference becomes a prescription for everyone else. This works beautifully for my marriage. Wonderful. This is how every woman should live. Now we have a problem. Because relationships aren't hashtags. People are different. Finances in each house is different. Personalities are different. And your goals can be different. What works beautifully in Timmy and Jane's house down the street might make another woman absolutely miserable. I don't understand why we can't simply say, that's not the life I want, without needing to add, therefore, nobody should want it either. Maybe we'd all be a little happier if we spent less time defending our choices to strangers and making more time to make sure those choices work for us. And while we're discussing things that work for us, I need to talk about home. More specifically, all the stuff you got inside of it. Because whether you own a house, an apartment, a townhome, I don't care. Decluttering is about more than the stuff. I don't even know how it all happens. Okay, no, that's not true. I know exactly how it happens. You put one thing down because you're going to deal with it later and another thing joins it. And apparently they invite friends over. Before long, you've got an entire section of your house filled with things nobody remembers putting there. Then there are the drawers. Every house has at least one drawer that has completely given up on having a purpose. Most of us call it the junk drawer. There are batteries in there, old receipts, and a charger that doesn't seem to fit anything currently owned by anyone in the house. 3 pins that may or may not work. A random key that you don't remember what the heck opens. Nobody knows. Can we throw it away? Absolutely not, because we might figure out what it opens. You know, the minute you throw away a mystery key, whatever it belongs to will reveal itself. So we keep it, for another 6-7 years. But I've realized as I've started decluttering, it's really about having a perfectly organized house. That's not really what it's about. There's a mental part to it. When there's too much stuff around, it feels like there's constantly something waiting to be done. And guess who is the person that's going to have to do it? That stack of stuff needs to be started. Those clothes need to be going through. That closet needs to be reorganized. You got some stuff that needs to be donated that's been sitting in the same spot in your trunk forever. Suddenly your house becomes one giant silent to-do list in your brain. And that's exhausting. Getting rid of that excess stuff gives you breathing room. So you can actually see what you own. So you can stop buying duplicates because you couldn't find the first one. We're not even going to talk about how many air fresheners we had when I got married to my husband. Because every time that man couldn't find a pack, I'm not talking one, a pack of them that he bought, he'd buy a new pack. We have been married for years, and I have yet to need to buy air freshener spray, thanks to how many packs of 3 he already owned. But I digress. Cleaning gets easier. Your home feels calmer when you declutter. And perhaps most importantly, you aren't constantly moving things from one location to another and calling that organizing. Because I've done that. You clean a room and you start putting that stuff in a different closet or a different room. You've probably done it too. That's not decluttering. That's just relocating the problem. So if you're looking around your house and you're thinking, I don't even know where I would start, here are some things I found that works better than trying to say, I'm just going to tackle everything at once and I'm going to declutter my house because that's overwhelming. Start with the easy stuff. Like, look through a space and decide what's going to be trashed, like expired products. Broken things you keep telling yourself you're going to fix, even since if they've been sitting there since 2022, you keep saying you're going to fix them. Get them out. Then move to the things you already know you don't want. That should not require a 45-minute emotional debate. If you pick up a shirt and immediately think, I hate this shirt, why do we need a committee meeting to talk about it? Just let it go. Then deal with the things that are simply in the wrong place. Sometimes a room looks cluttered because half the stuff in there actually belongs somewhere else. Put it back. Now you can see what you're really working with. And that comes the time for a hoarder category. The things you don't use, but you somehow just don't want to release. You know, the clothes that don't fit and haven't fit in years, but in your brand, you're going to get back to that size. And when you do, you're going to want these clothes. Are you? If you've had these clothes for years and you keep saying at one point, I'm going to get back to that size. Well, if you do have major weight loss and hit the goal you want, do you want the things that have been sitting there forever, or do you want to treat yourself with some new pieces? Or what about the expensive thing you bought and you regretted it, or the gifts people gave you that you really didn't like, but you felt bad because you didn't like them? Items connected to an older version of your life. That's where decluttering becomes emotional. Getting rid of something you spent a lot of money on, it's not going to bring the money back, but neither is keeping it. And that one can take some people a while. An expensive mistake doesn't become less expensive because you hold on to it. And please don't start by buying several storage containers. I know they're pretty. I know the matching baskets make the pantry on Pinterest look amazing. But if you buy all the containers before you decide what you're keeping, you've now paid money to professionally organize things you may not even want. Declutter first, organize second. Shop for the cute little baskets and containers last. And I think there's something satisfying about looking around afterwards and realizing everything that's left actually belongs in the life you're living right now. Okay? Which brings me to another area where I'm looking around and realizing I have quite a bit to get through. My books. And no, I'm not decluttering those. The reading list is reading me back. I'm officially behind on my reading goal for the year. I normally make my goal somewhere between 85 and 100 for the year. And I'm a little behind that so far for the year, simply because the first several months of this year were quite hectic and a lot of things happened that we weren't anticipating. So I'm not a little behind, I'm behind for me and my personal goal. And somehow that has done absolutely nothing to stop me from finding more books I want to read, because, you know, if you're a reader, you understand. The number of unread books you already own has absolutely no relationship to whether or not you're going to acquire another book. Only readers would get that. Those are completely two separate matters, and I will not be taking questions at this time. My current read is The Getaway by Karen Scott, which will actually come out next month. You know, I like to read a lot of advanced copies. I'm just getting started, so I'm not going to give you my thoughts on the book yet. I want to actually spend some time with it before I start forming any opinions. I have quite a few books I still want to get through this year. And falling behind has made me think about how easy it is to turn something you love into yet another obligation. Reading is supposed to be one of my escapes. I don't want to look at a book and think, I need to finish you by Thursday because I'm 3 books behind. That is not relaxation. That's an unpaid assignment. At the same time, I love having my reading goals. They encourage me to make time for something I genuinely enjoy. So I'm trying to find that balance. And I want to get back on track without turning December into some kind of literary emergency where I'm speed reading 12 books just to hit a number. So one thing I will be bringing back is sharing more of my reviews, and I'll be posting them again on social media as well as my website, like they always are. So if you're always looking for something new to read, you'll be able to follow along there. And there is another side of my reading life that is changing as well. If you don't follow my newsletter, you may not be aware. I'm not only talking about other people's books anymore. I'm writing my own. That still feels a little strange to say sometimes because over the years I've started and stopped so many times. This time I've been sharing chapters of my fiction writing on Substack, which has been a really interesting experience because normally writers disappear somewhere, write the book, and eventually come back and say, hey, here it is. I want to share more of what happens before the here it is. So I am going to start bringing a little more of the behind the scenes process to TikTok and perhaps Instagram. Not every word I'm writing. Nobody needs to watch me stare at a paragraph for 20 minutes trying to decide whether I hate it. Although actually that might be the most accurate representation of writing there is. I want to share what it's really like to build the stories, the writing days, the characters, the ideas that change halfway through, those moments when something finally clicks. And probably the moments when I realize I've created a problem for myself 50 pages ago and now I got to go figure out how to fix it. I'm working on both fiction and nonfiction, which uses completely different parts of my brain. With nonfiction, I'm pulling from things I've learned, experienced, questions, and things that I wish someone had told me sooner, where fiction lets me make people up, and then ruin their lives for entertainment. Balance. I also think there's something valuable about letting people see the process before everything is all polished. Social media usually shows us the finished product, the book, the business, the beautiful home, the successful career. What we often don't see is the middle, the draft that's not working, the idea that you might scrap, the chapter that you might rewrite 5 daggone times. The moment when somebody seriously considers whether writing a book was a good idea in the first place. That's the part I'm trying to start sharing more of. So if you've been following the fiction on Substack, you'll still find the chapters there. If you're interested in what happens behind those chapters and other books I'm working on, you'll start seeing more of that on TikTok and Instagram. And who knows, maybe publicly documenting some of it will also keep me accountable to stay on track with my chapter goals. Because apparently my reading list isn't the only thing around here that needs to stick to a schedule. So that's where my mind has been this week. I discovered the Traitors like a week or two ago and immediately lost an unreasonable number of hours of my life to it. Had a very frustrating business experience remind me that the people and the culture surrounding an opportunity matter just as much as the opportunity itself. Let the internet show me that people are still fighting over whether women should be traditional or independent, when I'm over here just wondering why we can't simply let women choose what works for their own lives. My house is reminding me that I don't need 17 versions of anything. My reading goal is looking at me with disappointment. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, I'm writing books of my own. Just a normal week around here. I'd love to know what made you stop and think this week. And if you watch shows like The Traitors, tell me I'm not the only person ready to yell at the television when someone is completely convinced the most innocent person in the castle is secretly a mastermind. If you're someone who's decluttering, tell me what you're finally getting rid of. Readers sometimes let me know what's currently on their nightstands. Because apparently I don't have enough books already. And if you're interested in following the writing journey, make sure you're following me on TikTok or Instagram, or at the very least, subscribe to my Substack. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. I'll be back next week with whatever has me talking to myself, questioning humanity, adding books to my TBR, or apparently binge watching entire television franchises. Until then, take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you next week.